Hello, my name is Tammy. I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but as soon as I start recording, like my nose starts itching and my grandchildren start screaming either upstairs or outside, and my dog starts scratching at the door. So I'm and also I kind of feel like that character Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, that when he does his fun with flags. I don't know why. Anyway, so there we go. So my name is Tammy, and I'm going to do a creation story. My particular story was written down by an anthropologist called Stephen Powers. Not called, his name was Stephen Powers. And he lived in, he was born back east and he came out here to California, and he was very fascinated with the indigenous people who lived in the Sierras, mostly in front, like around Yosemite area. In fact, he bought some property there, and he lived there and raised sheep. And in fact, he lived here and assimilated so much that he had the sun and the moon and some stars tattooed on his face. And this isn't about him, but I thought it would be sort of interesting to say where the story came from. Of course, it was the Miwok, Yosemite Miwok story, but he wrote it down. So one of the things I want to say before I get started, and I said it in my last video too, is that I'm a counselor at a methadone clinic in downtown Oakland. And I wanted to do my story that I was assigned before was a creation story. And so I wanted to do something different for this particular project. So I started reading through other stories, and I just kept being drawn to creation stories. And I started thinking about it. And I talked about this last time too, but one of the things that I really like about creation stories is that by the time my patients come to me at the clinic, they are so disconnected from everything. Part of that is the nature of addiction, but they're disconnected from their families, they're disconnected from their communities, they're disconnected from their friends, and they really just are kind of alone, just kind of out there. So one of the things I talk to them about is had they thought about maybe NA or AA, and almost always they say, yeah, I tried it, but it didn't work for me. And I asked them, like, what does it mean it didn't work? And they don't really know. And so I challenged them to try to look for similarities and see if that would help them feel a little more so that they can build some community support. And I was thinking about that in terms of the story, this creation story. Can you look for the similarities? And when I was telling my patients, when I was practicing on them this last week for this story, I would ask them, listen and see if you can hear anything that speaks to you, any similarities. So I'm going to challenge you when you're listening to this story, if there's any way I can tell it in a way that is interesting to you. Could you also look for anything that speaks to you or any similarities? So this particular story is a creation story by the Miwok Indians that are in near Yosemite, and it starts out with Coyote Man, who made the world. He made the earth, but it was covered with water. So he and his friend Frogman, they got in a canoe and they paddled east. And when they got to a certain spot, Coyote Man sent Frogman down to go underneath and find some mud. So Frogman dove down, and he was there for quite a while. And when he came back up, he had mud in his hands. And so Coyote Man took the mud that was in his hands and made land. And then a bunch of friends from Coyote Man and Frogman, where they lived, they joined them. So Fishman came, Cougar Man came, Lizard Man came, Grizzly Woman came, Star Woman came, and so they had quite a few people there. And Coyote Man was talking about he wanted to create people. And when he was talking about what sort of people he would create, Lizard Man was very adamant that people should have hands, not paws like Coyote Man. Well, Coyote Man, he jumped at the Lizard Man because he was really irritated with him because he wanted people to have paws. And Lizard Man stuck to it. No, he really thought people should have hands. And Coyote Man and Lizard Man, they argued for a long time. Lizard Man got scared and he ran up to the mountains and he was hiding in the rocks, and Coyote Man was looking for him. Eventually, they worked it out and they decided that people were going to have hands. Coyote Man said, "Okay, fine, we'll have people have hands." But before they made people, Coyote Man thought that the earth was just too dark and cold. So he sent the white-footed mouse up to get some fire, to steal some fire from somewhere. So white-footed mouse went up and he stole fire, and the valley people where he stole it from were chasing him back down, and he was afraid. So he hid the fire in the buckeye and the cedar tree. And the flame shot out from either the cedar tree or the buckeye tree, and it went up into the sky, and it created the sun. But quite a bit of the fire still stayed in the trees, and people, when they were going to make fire, they could rub the buckeye and the cedar branches together, and that's what would make the fire. So I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so now that the earth was warm and there was land, Coyote Man was ready to start making people, and he asked his friends who had come to join him if they would turn themselves into animals, and they all agreed. Coyote Man took 2 sticks and he went all around the land, and he put 2 sticks in the soil wherever he wanted people to live, and he named that place. And then he brought them all to life. And when they came to life, that's when all of his friends became animals. So Cougar Man became a cougar, and Fish Man became a fish, and Grizzly Woman became a grizzly bear. And the people, when they came to life, they saw the animals, and they watched the animals, and that's how they learned like what was good to eat. They learned from Cougar Man and Fox Man how to hunt, and that deer and small animals are good to eat. They watched the crane man, and they saw that fish are good to eat. They watched the grizzly bear, and Grizzly Woman, when she turned into a bear, she brought with her the love of acorn, and the people saw Grizzly Woman eating, grizzly bears eating acorns, and then they knew that acorns would be good to eat as well. And the other thing that they did is they watched nature and to learn. Mr. Powers talked about how they learned the wisdom of the ages through worshiping the Great Spirit, worshiping the sun, and watching the flowers, the weather, the animals, and the just nature around them. That's how they gained the wisdom of the ages, and that's how they learned to take care of the earth and what is good for them to eat and how to live. They learned how to live in cities and in villages by watching the ants, and I just thought that was really fascinating. By that watching others around them, that's how they learned, by watching the animals and the earth around them. That's how they learned what worked and what didn't. And for me, that was my takeaway from this story. That is the thing that I found what was a similarity, and that is watching people around me. And I talked to my patients about this. Like, one of their takeaways could be that the people learned the wisdom of the ages by watching what was going on around them, watching what worked and what didn't work. And I thought that was a really interesting takeaway. And one of the things I find is when I talk to my patients about this and I ask them what their takeaways are, that they, most of the time, they don't know that when I tell them the story and I'm like, do you have anything that stands out to you? And they're like, no. But often they'll come back the next week and they'll say, oh, hey, I was thinking about that story that you told me, and I was noticing whatever, this spoke to me or that spoke to me. And I just find that so fascinating. And when I was looking for a story to tell, I found some other stories that I've printed out, and I'm going, when they come back, they always ask me, do you have any more stories? And I find this so fascinating because most of the times when people come in for counseling, they do because they have to, but they don't really want to talk about their deep, dark secrets the first few times they meet me. which is fair. But I can tell them a story and we can talk about the story, and then we can talk about similarities, and we can talk about if there's anything that we've, that they learned or that they have thought about or that they've ever heard before, or if they have any family stories. And it's just been really great for my patients that I'm talking to. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that part of it. And I hope you enjoyed the story. And thanks. Bye.